Hey guys, it's Micah from edeneyetarot. I am here today to do a little bit of a different video. I wasn't really feeling my normal format today. I don't know if it's like all the energy kind of like going around right now and just kind of like my own life and schedule has kind of been just kind of everywhere. But you know, 'tis the season, Gemini season, so we're all busy. But I wasn't really feeling my normal format today, and so I wanted to do something a bit different. And so I was thinking, like, what did I want to do? Because Capricorn rising, I was like, let's keep the same structure, or let's stick to like, my normal structure of like doing like certain kinds of videos, and then keeping, I guess different videos like over here. And so I wasn't really feeling that today. And so I am doing something a bit different today, which I think is also good. Honoring that stellium and Aquarius that I have. But I am going to do a collective reading today, but like as I was thinking about making this video, I was like, well, I also want to talk about Mars and Venus being in Aries and Taurus respectively, and then Mercury will be going into Gemini. I've made like some comments about that like holy trifecta like on Facebook, briefly, and I do mean it, guys. I want to see all the ass. I want to see all the bikinis. I want to see all the curvy women on my timeline. If you don't do it, it is definitely a crime against the cosmos. That's all I'm gonna say. I want to see all the beautiful women, and I expect to see thigh meat for you men out there as well. I want to see it. But I've made comments like that about this trifecta on Facebook because I'm like, it just warrants it. And so I was thinking about doing a video about that today, but I was like, not really feeling it. Maybe like next week or something like that. But it's funny because I was like, okay, I'm going to do the collective reading. And I pulled cards from the Black Moon Oracle. I think that's what it's called, the Black Moon Astrology Cards. And I ended up getting the Mars and Venus card anyway, and Mercury's card anyway. So looks like I'm going to be talking about it anyway today. But today's just going to be a collective reading overall, and we'll be going through the cards. But what I did want to also add was I don't know if I would technically call them like, this is a friend gave me like these little affirmation cards a few years back, and I have been someone that's really like talked about affirmations in quite a few of my videos, but I really wanted to bring that in on today's video. And so like I'm the poster child like of affirmations, especially like if Venus is in Taurus right now, and so is Mercury. So it's time for affirmation. So I think it's just kind of timely. And even if this just kind of helps you like change your view for the month of June, because this collective reading is going to be for the month of June, I think that's also really helpful as well. So we have the card that I pulled for June for affirmations is going to be, I have a hard time accepting compliments. So that might be something that you internally feel, you're thinking. It might even be something that you say to yourself. But let's change that language around to I am unique, and that is my gift to the world. You guys probably won't be able to read it like, because I'm sure it'll turn out inverted, but hopefully, and that's why I read it. But that's going to be, something you really want to keep in mind, especially like as Mars is in Aries and Venus is in Taurus. It's all about, being creative and showing up for what you are wanting to create and really putting in the work for it as well. And that is really going to not just be a heart thing, it's going to be a mind, body, and soul thing. And so, and words thing. And so, with Gemini season coming up. So let's actually, because we're talking about like the astrology part of it a little bit, let's talk about the cards that I pulled from the Black Moon Tarot, or the Black Moon astrology cards, and then we'll get into the three major arcana cards that I pulled from the Millennial Tarot deck, since that is like one of my it's like still one of my favorite tarot decks that I have, even though it's only the major arcana, but I absolutely love that deck. And so let's start with the astrology cards first. So because we were talking about Venus, Mars, and Mercury, we're going to start with these three cards. So I want to start with Venus. So Venus in this deck is love, but I also want to say that Venus is also going to be like, what do you value? It's your self-respect, it's your self-worth. It's also going to be like maybe money spent and money gained as well. It's going to be resources and who is there to kind of help. Venus is like the harmony and like the I guess the want to create peace between you and another person. It's like that very like laid back, like, you know, Zen kind of like feeling of like, you know, just existing, you know, with others, is that harmony. And so when I look at Venus, I look at it as not necessarily just love, but relationships as well. And what is the state of those relationships? How can those relationships go the distance? Is there something that needs to be worked out? And, you know, how can it be worked out in a peaceful way? And with Venus being in Taurus, Venus in Taurus obviously is at home. It's very sensual. When I think of Venus in Taurus, I think about like all of the good perfumes and buying perfumes in particular. For myself, like ever since Venus has you know, entered Taurus, I'm like, I need to like buy, you know, all of fragrance net, but like I'm abstaining. But I think of like buying everything that has to do with the senses, or like, you know, indulging in those things. So like I'm thinking like, you know, perfumes or like, you know, jewelry, really nice bedding, or, you know, things that make you comfortable, and, you know, appeal to the senses. And maybe like, you know, jewelry, bedding, and perfumes aren't for you, but whatever you do value, you're really like diving into that at this time with Venus being in Taurus. I think also with Venus being in Taurus, I do think about like beautiful women, Venus as kind of like an archetype, you know, when it is showing up in people, is it like denotes like beauty, yes, but it's usually very like statuesque, so very like curvy. Like think like all the Pixar moms, like they're all very like Venus like, because Venus in Taurus is not afraid to get down with food. And so I'm thinking like, you know, eating all the good food, cooking all the good food, you know, things that are very rich as far as like food, and very like indulgent, you know, can really be something that we see with Venus in Taurus, and something you're indulging in, because Venus can be indulgence. Venus is all about attraction. It isn't about like going out and getting something. It's about like, what am I attracting? What is coming to me naturally? And so Venus in Taurus is about our desires, and maybe like waiting for things to come to you rather than you going to go get them, but, you know, maybe voicing, you know, your desire for things, because the going out and like going to get the things is more of a Mars and Aries thing, which I love that, you know, we have Mars and Aries both in their domiciles, because it kind of balances each other out. But we see a lot of beauty when we look at Venus and Taurus. And so while I do like see like, of course, like, you know, the feminine energy and maybe even the feminine form really being emphasized while Venus is in Taurus, I also think of like the desire for accumulation, and power as well, is a big thing with Venus and Taurus, because whenever I think of like working with Venus's energy, I automatically think of working with Mars. You can't have desire without like wanting to go after that desire. And I think that's really where Mars and Aries comes in. Kind of like briefly going back to Venus and Taurus before we go into Mars and Aries and the Mars card. Oops. I've dropped my cards for a second. Before we think about that, look at where Venus and Taurus is, because that's where you are attracting things. That's where you're really focusing on values. it's where you're going to see a lot of creativity and like, what are you fostering? Because remember, Venus and Taurus Taurus is all about fertility. And so it's like, are you creating something new? Are you, or have you already created something new? Have you already started a new project? And now you're just like adding to its momentum, whether it be a baby, whether it be an art project. Speaking of which, Venus and Taurus is really going to emphasize the arts and the aesthetics of things. It is going to really emphasize like your comfort, or really wanting to stay in your comfort zone when we're talking about like, what are you creating. And so it's very focused on what it's creating, and maybe even looking more so at quality rather than quantity of that thing. And so darn it, I lost my train of thought and I knew that was going to happen. But anyway, so let's move on to the Mars card. Oh, so I was going to say, look at where Venus in Taurus is at in your chart, and just take all that into consideration since we do have Venus for love. I would say also, Venus in Taurus is really looking at like building a foundation for relationships, or like expectations, or standards. Even raise your standards. Don't be afraid to have high standards when Venus is in Taurus. Again, it's about quality of the thing. And so when we have Venus, it's like, yes, these things are desirable, but what are they worth? What's their value? It can be like, as small as going out and judging if you are overpaying for, a pair of shoes, or something as serious as like, trying to plan out a future with a partner or something like that, or looking or reevaluating your budget when it comes to, wanting to reach a certain financial goal, or wanting to buy like a house or something like that. And really trying to figure out if if what you're paying is worth, if the price is worth like the actual thing. And so then we have the Mars card, and then in this deck, Mars is force, where Venus is love. And I was talking a little bit about how Venus in Taurus is desire, but Mars is the other side of that. It's going to be how we go after the desire. Whenever we're thinking of Venus, we automatically have to often think of Mars, because very few people that I know, ever will just say, oh, I want something, and then they don't do anything about it in some way, shape, or form. And that doing something about it is Mars. And it's going to be like how we look at like the pursuit of those desires. And so having Mars in its domicile in Aries, and then Mercury, not Mercury yet, and then Venus in its domicile in Taurus is almost like the art of war. Because Venus is all about pleasure. Mars is all about like conflict, going after things, being very direct, especially when it's in Aries. It's not going to tiptoe around things very much when it comes to what is it after. And I think that can be a great thing. It depends, I guess, on what side of the spectrum is it on. Is it being, very, direct and to the point and ambitious and, exacting on its standards and not afraid to walk away from something if something isn't working out, and being productive in that way? Or is it being like a bull in a china shop and, just being like, this little tyrant and just, causing chaos and pain, in order to get what it wants. And I think that's the whole, like, art of war that's kind of coming through Mars and Venus being in their own domiciles at the same time. Mars and Aries can be very impulsive. And so I would say when we have the Mars card coming up for June, it can be really about like, make sure, yes, that you're going after what it is you want, but it might be really important to plan. And it might be more important also to have that softness, like that Venus kind of creates, in, wanting to understand another person's perspective, not just your own, which is very much an Aries thing. It's like my desires, or my pursuits, or like, my creation or whatever. And that's great. I do that. But like, remember that, there are other people involved in your pursuits often times, and, your actions, even if you are working on your own, often affect other people. And so, just like the affirmation says, yes, what you are creating is its own unique gift to the world. However, other people are also creating things, and your creation isn't the only one that matters, and your feelings aren't the only ones that matter. And so we want to try our best to keep good relationships intact, or not be too brash or rash when it comes to this time, when it comes to our actions. Or how assertive or aggressive we're being, more so like aggressive, because assertive is it's cool, you're exacting your boundaries, and I think that's something that Mars and Aries is really good at, is exacting its boundaries. Mars is going to be all about like severing things, and so it's not afraid to cut bait where things just aren't working out, and Taurus is the energy that's really able to kind of like run with that and not look back, and so I really like that as well. Side note, Mars being in Aries and Venus being in Taurus just like screams to me not only creation, but it screams like people are getting pregnant, people are feeling like very sexual. Mars and Aries can have be like a high sex drive, but it is going to be like, where Venus can be about our desires, Mars and Aries can be about things happening very quickly. So things that start quickly, end quickly. You could take that in a sexual term, in a sexual way or not. But just keep that in mind that, that planning again, and that, I guess like that more calculated side where we see Venus and Taurus, that's a bit more cautious and a bit slower to act, or is really important when we are talking about Mars and Aries, because we want things to last, for a while, or have their best chance of, being able to take root. And Mars and Aries, I think, is good at starting things, but it's not so great at like finishing things a lot of the time. And sometimes it can start things and, cut things off and pursue things a bit rashly as well. There can be some hurt feelings, there can be some conflict in there. And I think it's like, with Mars and Aries and Taurus and Venus and Taurus, it's about finding a good balance between the two. It's saying that, we can work together, but these are my boundaries. Please don't cross them. If not, there will be hell to pay. Lastly, we have out of the three cards that I pulled, like that the transits are currently in. I swear I did not plan this. We also have Mercury, which is the mind. So Mercury is currently in Taurus right now, and it is, thank God, it's going to be end its retrograde cycle. Like, Jesus Christ, like this retrograde has been insane. I figured it would be, but like I had no idea personally for me. So like if you guys have also been going through it with Mercury retrograde, please let me know. I always love hearing the Mercury retrograde stories. But Mercury is the mind, and it's in Taurus right now. And so it's reevaluating your budget, reevaluating, what you're paying for something, reevaluating the value you're putting on certain things. It's reevaluating the budget, reevaluating resources. We just had a new moon that was ruled by Mercury in Taurus. And so it's, reimagining things as well, or recreating things. When we're looking at Mercury, we're not just looking at communication and intellect and how are we, and what money we're spending on, maybe on learning certain skills, especially things that have to do with like your hands. But it's also going to be like your communication when it comes to like talking to other people. And we were talking about that when we were talking about Venus and Taurus. And it's and how we were talking about like with both Mars being in Aries and Venus being in Taurus, how it's important to speak your piece and create your boundaries, which Mercury and Taurus is definitely expressing. But it's important to hear other people out as well, not just speaking your own piece, but also hearing the other side of it, because Venus is very cooperative, especially with Mercury being in a Venus ruled sign. It's going to be a cooperative listener. It might not roll over and believe everything that maybe somebody else is spewing, depending on what they're saying, but it's definitely going to listen very closely. It's very attentive in that way. It can also create, friendships as well, which is interesting because we have another card that's talking about friendships, and so it's talking about where's your network, what is your network, what's going on with friends, and is there some conflict? Are you and friends working together? Can be another one as well. And as we're talking about friendships, we have the 11th house. Take a look at what sign is inhabiting your 11th house. The 11th house is not just about your friends and communities. It's about like dreams, hopes, aspirations as well. It is going to be your allies, who's on your side, and who can you trust and rely on. All of those things are really going to be a big part of what we're seeing in July, is focusing on that. Where's your team at, and are they helping you or hindering you when it comes to that goal that you have for the future? Does it match up? We also have Aquarius, the Aquarius card, which is I know. I know is I think like it's a loaded statement, as are all the zodiac key phrases. But I know we think about that. Aquarius can be very much about like the mind. It's about like teaching yourself, because it's all about independence. And so it's not just knowledge that maybe learn from your network and from your community, but it's being self-taught as well. And so while you're teaching yourself things, are you also helping to maybe pass on that information, to pass on that knowledge? It can also be, I know that I have a solid enough network to get me to where I need to be, to help me get there faster, maybe, because Aquarius is ruled by, in modern astrology, by Uranus. And so it can be about like things happening very suddenly, things changing in an instant. And so it can be like, am I putting in the work? I know I'm putting in the work for things to kind of like, get to where they need to be. And even though I can't see it right now, I know that things are going to work out, and they do. They manifest because you're putting in the work, Mars, because you're speaking it into existence, Mercury, and therefore it's being attracted to you, which is Venus. What you are seeking is already and has been seeking you. And I think that's really what the Aquarius card is saying. And maybe it does come through friends, maybe it does come through allies, but I think one thing's for sure is that with all the cards that we've kind of covered so far, other people definitely play a part in it, but it's really talking about like, your own belief, your own vision. Are you putting yourself in a position where you're able to achieve the very things that you're saying that you want? It's not just about speaking it, it's about action as well. As well as passion, because when we put Mars and Venus together, we can't avoid the whole like passion word, passion and creativity. And so then we have the Sun card, which is spirit. The sun in astrology is all about purpose. It's about the goals that you have and how you achieve them. It's going to be leadership as well. So it can be a lot, again, like kind of going back to that Mars and Aries, which it's nice because the sun in Gemini is making nice sextiles to Jupiter and Mars and Aries. And so it can really be expanding on the conversations that you're having with people, expanding your social network and friendships as well, because Mercury is definitely network in I guess in some way, shape, or form. Exchange of information, messages coming in really hot, maybe getting some unexpected messages that maybe either help or hinder your plans, and you maybe have to change how you're going about certain things. The Sun in Gemini and Mercury, the Sun in Gemini and all the stuff going on in Mars, and not all the stuff going on in Aries, there we go, with Mars and Jupiter and Aries, can also be about like, again, slow down. Think through things, think before you jump. I think that's something that the Aquarius card is also really saying, is because that's what Aquarius does. And it might not always seem like it, but Aquarius is, traditionally ruled by Saturn, which is all about structure. And I think the best expression of Aquarius is not just throwing out structure. It's not just throwing out tradition. It's recognizing that there is real value in tradition, but being also very willing and actively changing tradition, but keeping some remnants of the structure that is represented by Saturn. And, it having to not be just all, all old in tradition, but also, not just completely changing, flushing the format, and integrating some progression, making it different, changing things, shaking things up a little bit. And so it's not completely just throwing out, like, the structure or the planning that goes with achieving a certain vision. But the sun is saying, like, I think essentially the sun card is really coming up to say, one, you're enough. You, like, again, I will not stop, like, bringing this one up. This affirmation card, I am unique. That first line of this affirmation card, is Aquarius not unique? It's all about independence, and the sun is your own unique purpose. It's your own unique ideas and your own unique, community. It's your own unique purpose and vision as well, and you're really going towards that. You're heading that. Lastly, for the Black Moon Tarot, or I keep calling them tarot cards, they're oracle cards, we have the Card of Fortune, which in this deck is increased, which I will say that I slightly disagree with. The way that I have learned about the Card of Fortune, I'm not saying I know everything about the Card of Fortune, but what I have learned about the Card of Fortune, the Card of Fortune is not necessarily always going to be about increase or like something good happening. The Card of Fortune is just a trigger point. It makes things happen, makes things go boom, boom, so to speak. And so I think that's definitely, again, like, very much a Mars and Aries kind of thing. If you are saying the desires, Venus and Mercury and Taurus, Mars and Aries allows it to happen and happen very quickly. Things get literally triggered. Mars is not to, again, trigger anybody, but Mars is going to be like guns, and as we're talking about triggers or whatever, just being ready to go ahead and make the action, pull the trigger on things, and go ahead and bite the bullet. All the gun puns that I can make with this, but it is like it's saying that with the actual work creates the actual thing. And I think that's the beautiful, part of the beautiful thing that we're kind of seeing throughout the month of June, is that all of that, as we're going from the transitionary kind of energy of Gemini into the sign of Cancer, which is cardinal, and it's really, taking that turn. It is all about action happens. So we're getting rid of certain things that, don't need to be there, but, picking up things that are very essential. It's in Gemini season. And we are getting ready, in kind of like, I think of, I don't know if anybody's seen like a cartoon like this. It seems to be like a common like scene in cartoons where, like, a character you'll zoom into the character's mind, and you'll see like all the people working in their office and their brain center. And like, everything is happening, and people are like, the little brain people are like running around, like, throwing certain things out, or like, adding certain things in. I think that's everything that's happening right now in Gemini season, of course, is like you're getting rid of certain things, but gaining new things that will help prepare you for the action that happens in the cardinal sign of Cancer when things start, to really start clicking. And that's really what I think the Card of Fortune is saying, is that we're about to hit that pivot point and things get triggered into being. So those are the Black Moon Oracle cards. And so we're going to really quickly go through the Millennial Tarot cards that I pulled. So these are, speaking of being triggered, we have three nice ones. So first of all, we have student loans, which in this deck is the Death card. And so it's about, again, it's about that purging. It's about, sacrificing and, transforming into, it's like being in a cocoon almost, is what I think of when I think of the Death card. It's about like, emerging different than how you were maybe like the other side of your metamorphosis. It's purging things. It's attaching onto other things. It's going deep. It's about cutting things off that don't need to be there, that aren't useful anymore. But it's also Scorpio's card. And so it's about, in some way, shape, or form, like merging or working with other people to create something new as well. It's that very transformative energy, but it's also about vulnerability. And so it's not just about vulnerability with other people, but vulnerability, most importantly, I think, with yourself, and being honest with yourself, getting down to the root of things, being unafraid to open things up, cut things open things up, and really get around, like move things around in there. Next, we have the moon card. As we're talking about moving things around in there and vulnerability, we have the moon card, which in this deck is the ghoster. The moon card is Pisces card. And so between the death card and the moon, there's a lot of feelings, maybe a lot of dark feelings. Maybe some of you are, having to deal with past trauma. I know that's been like something that I have personally been dealing with a lot, like I think since the beginning of May. But we really see the need to face those fears, those habits that maybe are holding us back, and really purge those things so that you're able to realize your highest potential and really kind of get past the things that are holding you back. Because the moon is all about the things that go bump in the night, the things that are unseen, the things that are a bit scary to us, even if they live inside of us. It can also be about taking time to meditate, maybe at night, when things are clear, when things are quiet. But, the nighttime is a bit spooky because you can't see everything. And so it's all about, like, between the death and the moon card, it's about changing and shedding off what's unnecessary so that you can be completely, open, naked in front of the moon. And that visual, I mean, if you want to be like naked in front of the full moon, go ahead. Like, I am rooting for you. But I think figuratively, when I'm seeing this in my mind, it's like it says necessity. I am open and ready to receive everything that is coming. I don't have to have control of it. I am just here to be to not be a vessel, but a participant in this experience. And even though I don't have complete control of the things that may or may not happen, I realize that all I can control is this vessel and how I react to those things. Because remember, the moon is all about reaction. It doesn't have its own light. And so it's not only just about change, but it's about like what you don't have control over, and facing that and being completely open with that. And finding maybe comfortability in that there is some divine purpose, some divine being kind of like intercepting your situation, and you just kind of have to trust the process. Lastly, we have the devil card, which, as we're talking about giving up control, the devil card, which is the fuck boy in this deck. It is Capricorn's card, so it can be about control. It can be about managing, wanting to manage things, really caring about appearances, whereas the moon and the death card really don't care about appearances. It's saying, I think all three of these cards together with the devil card are saying, it's okay to give up control where it's not where you don't need to control things. And having the discernment and the mind to be able to know in what situations you need to, let go. Like, it is talking about, all three of these cards are talking about some sort of ambition on a different level. I think the moon card especially, I think, is like, aspiring towards that higher vibration of like spiritual and conscious ambition. But I think more so with the death card and the devil card, it can be talking about maybe more physical. I mean, both can be more spiritual, but I definitely think like the moon card in particular is really talking about like what's happening on inside rather than maybe externally, as to where the death and the devil card could be talking about internal and external. And so it's about, being the best that you can be, I think, either way you think about it. and being willing to give up certain things and, you know, break certain restrictions that you are either holding yourself to or other people are holding you to, that are not allowing you to get to where you want to go. And not being afraid to do those things, to really take hold of that by letting go. There's so much power in surrender. And when we look at the Devil card, we see themes of restriction. We see, because of Saturn's rulership over the sign of Capricorn, we see things like restriction. We see things like being very materialistic, or, you know, being, you know, really overvaluing things, or, you know, status even, because that's a very Capricorn thing, is like status. And, you know, I guess the darker side of these three cards is being like, you know, wanting to be better, to seem, you know, aspiring towards certain things, to seem like you are maybe well, better, in a better situation, or more well off than maybe other people are at the time, because that ambition is almost going too far. It's not for you anymore. It's for, you know, the very, like, look at me. Little quiet as it's kept, like, Capricorn has an archetype, can be very much like, look at me, like, you know, look at what I have achieved, kind of thing. But what I like about the Devil card is it's saying, like, don't spend too much, especially with Venus and being in the fellow Earth sign of Taurus. It's saying, you know, make sure that you're structuring not just your actions, which is that square between Capricorn and Aries, Mars and Aries, and plan out your actions, be strategic. But it's also saying it's trying to Venus and Taurus to also you know, be both Taurus and Capricorn can be very frugal. Taurus loves a good bargain. And so it's like, you know, really make sure that you are judging, you know, the value of things appropriately. Don't just go spending, you know, willy-nilly. Don't just be like, you know, what you give is sacred. And so treat it as such. And that's really what I'm getting with all of these cards. So just as we close, I want to read that affirmation card again, just so that you remember it as you close out of this video. So remember, if you are thinking, I have a hard time accepting compliments, just remember, Saturn is rooting for you. The moon is rooting for you. Pluto is rooting for you to transform. We could even say, I guess, like for the moon card, Neptune. But we've got like the heavy hitters, like, you know, here in these cards. And then we've had Uranus, like, I guess, kind of like, you know, thrown into the mix as well, but throughout this video. But you know, we have the heavy hitters, you know, really coming in June, and it's a very transformative time. So if you're thinking that you have a hard time accepting compliments, Venus and Taurus loves compliments, especially me. You know, and so we're really saying, we're focusing on, I'm unique, and that is my gift to the world. So with that being said, guys, thanks so much for hanging with me through this video. I'm sure it's a longer one. I'm not sure exactly how long this video has been, but I'm sure it was a longer one, you know, for not me doing like my normal schedule, but or scheduled like structure of videos, but really, what is that? And so with that being said, guys, I will see you later. If you would like to book a reading with me, check down in the description, and check out my blog posts too. I do those every week, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.